Welcome to Module 1. Before we begin, let us first look at the levels of language, namely, phonology, or the study of sound, morphology, the study of word structure, lexicon, or the word stock of a language, syntax, that which deals with sentence structure, and semantics, the area of linguistics that studies meaning. For the study of discourse, we are more interested in semantics and the study of meaning. And what is discourse analysis? It is an approach to the analysis of language that looks at patterns of language across texts, as well as the social and cultural contexts in which the texts occur. Discourse analysis examines words in context, the quality of being meaningful and unified. It is interested in the structure of texts, its function, and how words relate to each other within the text. For example, when you make a joke and somebody responds by saying, "That's not funny," we examine the text with its surrounding text, like, perhaps the person does not find it funny because he is experiencing a sad moment in his life, like the death of a loved one. Or perhaps he is not comfortable with the environment. We also examine surrounding text, like, what is the function of his statement and the conversation structure. When a person says this, we can visualize it this way. The lady here says, "That's not funny," as a reaction to a joke. This could be her response because probably she remembered a negative experience associated with a joke, or because of bad weather. She's simply not in the mood to be jolly. Or she wants to convey a speech act. You are out of line. Or the joke is not appropriate to a conversation structure. The surrounding text is what we call context. And what are the contexts outside of the text? We have situational context, background knowledge context, contextual context. Discourse analysis looks at cultural ways of speaking and writing, pragmatics, what people mean by what they say, the discourse structure of texts. DA also looks at communicative competence and discourse, and discursive competence. Discourse analysis has several views. First, it views discourse as the social construction of reality. For example, how Princess Diana construes her social world in that interview with BBC Panorama. The underlined words will clearly show how the late Princess of Wales construed her social reality. Well, to her, it was her reality. Look at the underlined words closely. This was how Princess Diana construed her social reality. There was pressure on her and Prince Charles as a couple because of media attention. In fact, it says that if you're a man, like her husband, a proud man, you will really feel low about it instead of feeling happy and sharing it. And with the media and people's attention pouring more onto her, so her husband, Prince Charles, became jealous of her. And you also look at these underlined words. Diana felt that she was more and more involved with people who were rejected by society. Well, this is the princess construction of her social reality. Another view of discourse analysis is discourse and socially situated identities. When we speak or write, we use more than just language to display who we are and how we want people to see us. The way we dress, the gestures we use, and the ways we act and interact also influence how we display social identity. Princess Diana knew in the Panorama interview not only how she is expected to speak in the particular place and time, but also how she should dress, how she can use body language to achieve the effect that she wants, as well as the values, attitudes, beliefs, and emotions it is appropriate for her to express in this situation. That is, she knows how to enact the discourse of a princess being interviewed about her private life in the open and public medium of television. This discourse, of course, may be different from the discourses she participated in her role as mother of her children, and the public and private roles and identities she had as wife of the Prince of Wales. Meaning, in our case, for example, the way I talk as a professor is different from the way I would speak with my husband, my children, my friends. Another thing that discourse analysis looks into is discourse and performance. The notion of performativity derives from speech act theory and the work of the linguistic philosopher Austin. It is based on the view that in saying something, you do it. Examples of this are, I promise, and I now pronounce you man and wife. When I say, for example, I promise, I am committing myself to doing something. Performance thus brings the social world into being. Another view of discourse analysis is on discourse and intertextuality. All texts, whether they're spoken or written, make their meanings against the background of other texts and things that have been said on other occasions. For example, when you ask me how my day was with my boyfriend, I could tell you now that he hit me like a wrecking ball. The intertext that would come to mind would be the famous line from the song of Miley Cyrus, Wrecking Ball. Thus, one can interpret my meaning as that my boyfriend hurt my feelings during that time. This meaning is derived due to the intertextuality of the text from that Miley Cyrus song. And now, what is the difference between the spoken and the written discourse? Grammatical intricacy is evident with written discourse compared to spoken discourse. Grammar is more complex when we write compared to when we speak. Another difference is lexical density. The vocabulary in written discourse is more complicated compared to our spoken vocabulary. Likewise, we expect a certain degree of formality in written discourse. Now we also have to consider nominalization in written and spoken discourse. Written discourse tends to have longer noun groups than spoken discourse. For example, you take a good look at this. The description of Humphrey Bogart, existential hero in spite of himself, and Bergman and Henry are hardly incandescent lovers. Neither are Bergman and Bogart, for that matter. There's a dash there, but their rigidity as sexual partners works, intentionally or not, to the film's advantage. In this example, we can see a lot of noun groups in this written review of Casablanca. Humphrey Bogart, for example, is described as the existential hero in spite of himself. Or there are also words like misanthropy and climactic selflessness. Or you will also be seeing more dashes here to show additional information like Bergman and Henried are hardly incandescent lovers. Neither are Bergman and Bogart, for that matter, but their rigidity as sexual partners works intentionally or not to the film's advantage. All these will show how complicated the written discourse is. Now, I'd like you to compare this to the spoken discourse. You see that the words used here are simple and spontaneous. Also, spoken discourse is not explicit. For example, Yvonne asks, "Will I see you tonight?" And Rick answers, matter-of-factly, "I never make plans that far ahead." So, he is not giving an exact answer of yes or no, but rather, we can only infer that he is not going to see her. There is also a difference in the contextualization in spoken and written discourse. Moreover, spoken discourse has a more spontaneous nature. Also, there is repetition, hesitation, and redundancy in spoken discourse. So as you can see in this example, we have the panorama interview with Princess Diana, and you can see here lots of pauses and hesitations on the part of the princess. So that's the end of our discussion for Module 1. The rest of the topics will include discourse and society, discourse and pragmatics, discourse and genre, discourse and conversation, discourse grammar, and approaches to discourse. Well, see you in Module 2.